Gateway 97.8, Basildon and East Thurrock's brighter sound from the heart of Eastgate. Drive time with Roz, and my special guest today, one always very welcome because we do a monthly spot, is Sidra Naeem, who comes from the Muslim faith. And as we're approaching a Christian festival this year, it's Christmas in just a day or two. Sidra, welcome to Gateway. What does it mean in the Muslim calendar?
Okay, well, we believe in Jesus. We believe he's one of the major prophets in Islam as well. And the story of Jesus' birth, the exact story is actually written in the Quran, the part about...
That's exactly the same, is it?
Angel Gabriel coming down and mentioning to Mary, that you're going to have a baby and you'll call it Jesus. That part is actually identical. So in, for example, an Islamic country... people would not celebrate Christmas. They would celebrate the two Eids, which is part of our faith. In an Islamic country, that they wouldn't normally celebrate.
Now, we've
Christmas.
mentioned Eid before, and anybody that's not heard what this means, what is Eid?
Yes. The word Eid means celebration, and there are two Eids in Islam. One Eid comes after the month of fasting, Ramadan, which in a way celebrates that we can eat again and we can break our fast. And the other Eid comes after the month of pilgrimage.
Right.
And that celebrates the story of Abraham when he was asked to sacrifice his son, and God saved his son and put a ram there in his place.
Right, we've had this story before. It's quite an interesting story, isn't it?
Yes.
That features in the Quran as well, does it?
Yes, it is, yes. But in this country, we live in this country, so anyone living here, Christmas Day, it's a bank holiday, the shops are shut.
You eat mince pies?
Yes, we do. Nothing wrong with mince pies. And everybody is off work. The children are at home. And in the end, we do end up getting together, and we do end up having a meal together because there's nothing else to do, is there?
Well, either that and watch television and drink wine and fall asleep in a chair, isn't it?
Yeah, the programmes we watch. And then when I'm at work, obviously there's always a Christmas do at work. My husband went with all the doctors with his surgery, and we had a big party. So
your husband is a doctor?
He is, yes. He's a GP in Brentwood. Yes. There was a big doctor's party, and he went to that. And I had a very big party where I work, and I've just got a new job actually in a university. So
oh wow!
It's very, very exciting.
What are you doing?
I've got two brilliant roles there. One, I'm a Muslim chaplain, so I'm supporting all the Muslim students in the whole university, including the staff. And there are a lot of international students in university, so they really needed one. My interview was up against 4 imams, actually, which was really interesting. Because
you must have really impressed them.
I must have done, because I was one woman against 4 men who were imams, dressed to the part and knew the whole Quran off by heart.
But something must have shone through. They must have liked you. Well, you're a very likeable person, aren't you, Sidra?
Yes, well, I hope I am. They liked all the interfaith networks that I'm part of and everything.
And you're a radio star as well.
Yes. And then apart from that, yes, I am. Yes, everybody hears me on the radio. So I do actually feel quite famous nowadays. Everywhere I go, people know me. I've met 2 MPs recently as well. So.
Right. Are they 2 of our local ones, or
no?
Ones from
they're from the
afield?
Houses of Parliament.
Really?
One of them was Lord Bourne. Yes, I've met 2 of them very recently. They've invited me back to meet Sadiq Khan, so I might just do that.
Oh, now we were talking about Sadiq Khan when he was inaugurated as mayor. Yes. Oh, that's how you're going to meet Sadiq. Oh,
yes.
That'd be brilliant.
And my other role in the university, the main role, is I'm a lecturer for education. So, I was a school teacher before. So now I'll be teacher training all the teachers, especially in the special educational needs module, which was what my job was before. I was a SENCO, which is Special Education Needs Coordinator. So I'm going to be taking the modules and teacher training teachers in 3 degrees actually. One is a BEd, Bachelor of Education, and then there's 2 others. One is childhood and behaviour studies and that kind of stuff. So really exciting role and very high role actually. and I'm really enjoying it. I only started a couple of weeks ago.
So you'll have a break for Christmas and celebrate as we do, and then it all takes off in the new year. Do you have turkey at Christmas?
We can have
Yeah,
turkey.
are you
You know,
allowed?
our meat shops are all full of halal turkeys at the moment.
Wow.
So if we want to, yes, we can. We have had halal turkey in the past. It is very dry, though. We find it quite dry.
Yes.
So we would, I mean, each family is different. Some families have halal turkey, some family will have roast lamb
When you cook it,
instead.
if you put a bowl of water in the oven with it,
Okay.
it'll keep it moist.
Okay, I'll keep that. I'll keep
Yes.
that in my
Use
mind. for
Pyrex dish, and fill it with water.
Mhm.
And as it's cooking in there, if it's open in the oven, then the heat from the water will keep it
okay.
moist. So that's a little
good.
tip for you there.
Brilliant, thank you for that.
You're listening to Gateway 97.8. My guest Sidra Naeem. We're talking about Christmas. Christmas hasn't been fun for people in Germany. We've got to touch on the subject of the lorry incident, where it appears a Tunisian Muslim has been involved in a terrorist incident. So we'll touch on that and get Sidra's reaction right after this. It's Gateway 97.8, our local radio from the heart of Eastgate. You're listening to Gateway 97.8, Basildon and East Thurrock's brightest sound from the heart of Eastgate. Ros with Drive Time today. The last one it is before Christmas. My guest in the studio, Sidra Naeem. This is a regular monthly meet-up that we have. And we've been talking about Christmas. Not much fun Christmas is going to be for certain people in the heart of Berlin in Germany, where on Monday a man ploughed a lorry into a busy Christmas market right in the heart of the city there. The driver fled the scene but was arrested nearby. So they thought, and then it turned out police had got the wrong man, and the driver himself was found dead in his lorry cab. Sidra, I mean, this is a shocking incident and a sign that perhaps checks needed to be made on asylum seekers. I think Angela Merkel is going to be in trouble when it comes to the forthcoming elections. I don't know. You don't like looking at the news with a lot of this, do you? And I mean, this must be just another shock.
Yes, I mean, I avoid watching the news because it's all so negative against Islam, but something like this you do get to hear about. And the Muslim community have been ever so sad about it, as always, because they know that doesn't portray the real Islam. They know that you're not supposed to do that in any faith. Everybody knows that you do not kill in any faith.
We got to make it quite clear, I think, on this show that because we're going to get all this Islamophobia thing come up again out of it, we don't like to see any faiths persecuted, that it's like 0.0001. It's got to be a faction of the Muslim faith is actually like this, isn't it? Because Muslim faith is not about violence, and I think that's what we've got to try and do. What can Muslim leaders in Berlin, in Germany, do at this particular time? Could they have done more to trying to assure people of this?
I think that they do, but that part is never televised. There's a lot of Islamophobia out there, and it's all about promoting bad against Islam. So people do. I mean, I myself, I've done, I do so much, but it's not really out there in public to tell everyone. I mean, they went, I think, to a Jewish synagogue that day when all of this happened, and they publicised that, which I saw on the news, and I thought to myself there, but Muslims feel the same way. So why did they not go into a mosque and publicise how the Muslims are feeling? Because we all absolutely hate it when we see it, and we do get affected. I have mentioned this before. We are too scared to go to work the next day. Even though we haven't done it, we're scared someone might do something to us because
like
the
in
hatred
retaliation,
is there.
yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we do worry. I mean, I've just started a new job, and I used to feel like that in my last job. And then when this new job, which I'm so happy about, I had to go into work the next day after this happened, and I had the same horrible feeling in my heart again that, oh my God, what am I going to say to them now? We keep saying Islam is good and Islam is wonderful, it's a religion of peace, and no religion allows you to kill, and if you kill one person it's like killing the whole of mankind. Then it all goes to bits when something like this happens.
So again, is somebody who's been radicalised, and who is doing this teaching and what kind of things are they teaching? I've heard, Cedra, about Pakistani children as young as, 10, 11 and 12 being taught by elders this rather extreme version of Islam. Where is all this bad side of it coming from?
I mean, this is really a question to ask those people who are being radicalised. But I think that extremism happens usually when there's too many of one kind living together, where they're not mixing with other faiths.
Yeah, we are seeing this in the UK as well, aren't we? In certain cities and towns.
Yeah, not understanding other faiths and parrot fashion, just teaching the religion like they think it is without looking up yourself. It's so important to look up a faith yourself, and I think interfaith events help you to look at your faith with different eyes, because you get other faiths asking you questions, and if you've been parrot fashioned just understanding your faith, you won't be able to answer them. It makes you look into your religion and makes you realise that, are you parrot fashioned following the religion like your ancestors told you, or are you looking it up for yourself and thinking outside the box when you are learning?
Yeah. Well, this Tunisian man, apparently was on the police radar. He was under surveillance, but he's dropped off the radar. Obviously there are going to be questions asked here about methods of policing, and again, this is giving momentum to the far right in Germany.
Yes, of course, yes. I mean, I don't know if you heard about the mosque attack. That was actually on the news in Switzerland. If you Google Swiss mosque attack, and 3 Muslims were actually shot dead, and the man apparently was a far-right Swiss person, and he then killed himself afterwards.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of scenario, whereas you hear less of that, but then something like what you heard with Germany's all over the news. So, but if you Googled Swiss mosque attack, it is there, and this is happening more and more. More and more Muslims are being attacked out there because of all this Islamophobia that's going on and everything, and then events like this makes it worse. It's going to, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I turn on the news, every other story is about Muslims and terror, and it's always negative. There's not a lot that's positive. Hopefully we're putting some of this right on this programme today. I mean, we've been talking about Christmas, a time of peace, a time for celebration for Christians and Muslims, and what it means to us. You and I, we're both going to have a Christmas meal with, friends and family. And I mean, it's not all about bombing and killing, is it?
No, it isn't. And all the people that I know are very lovely, very hospitable, lovely, caring, close-knit families. Very peaceful religion, really. All these people are actually a very small minority.
Yeah, we have to try and get to the bottom of what is actually going wrong with it, because it does seem to be attached to the Muslim faith, and it's unfortunately affecting a lot more people.
Yes, and also I think their mental stability needs to be checked as well. I just feel, a lot of these people are not mentally okay.
No, and I mean, well, we're back to border controls. Germany is allowing a lot of people to come into its country without properly checking who they're actually letting in.
That is very important, isn't it, I think?
Yeah. It's Gateway 97.8. It's Basildon and East Thurrock's Bride of Sound drive time. Roz and my guest this afternoon, Cedra Naeem, is on the show today, and we're talking about all things to do with Islam. And I suppose our next subject when we come back is got to be about the new president-elect in the US. So we are, of course, talking about Donald Trump. Drive Time with Roz, Gateway 97.8 for a Friday afternoon. It's the last Drive Time show before Christmas. Big event on the Christian calendar. It's also one in the Muslim calendar as well. Also taking a break over the festive season. My guest today, Cedra Naeem. We've been talking about the horrific events that have taken place in Berlin. 12 people dead after a lorry ploughed through a Christmas market. A man thought to be the killer, a Tunisian attacker named as Anis A. He's suspected to have hijacked a Polish truck, around 4 hours before ploughing into those crowds in Berlin. Absolutely shocking stuff. And we've got to talk about the president-elect in the US. He's reacted to this by saying, lockdown in America, ban all Muslims.
Yeah.
How do we react to this?
Well, I did say, didn't I, that he was going to win the elections.
You did.
Yeah, which is really interesting. I kept saying that. A lot of people said, no, don't be silly. It's not that bad. But he did, so I was right there.
You was.
Yes.
And so a lot of Muslim people in America, are they likely to be feeling uncomfortable now?
Yes, of course. Yes, our future's very insecure. And January, I think, is the time when he will officially become the president. So we're not really looking forward to this year because we have got a lot of worries and anxieties at the moment about what is going to happen with the future of Muslims. And like I've said in previous programmes, England always follows whatever rules America has. So if America bans Muslims, I'm sure we're going to be out of here.
Well, having said that, Theresa May hasn't been to see him and congratulate him in person yet, but Nigel Farage has.
Yes, yes.
Ex-UKIP leader. But there we are, Donald Trump, president-elect. He'll be sworn in the new year. I would have thought for Muslims who are living and working in the United States, not particularly too much of a worry, but for possible new Muslims who want to move to the US, perhaps not good.
No, I don't think they will actually, because they don't know what the future of the country is. So that definitely would have reduced Muslims immigrating there. But also the ones who are living there, like we were born and brought up in England and we quite strongly say we're British, where would they go? Because our own countries, we don't feel are our own countries. We're aliens to our own countries. We're foreigners, if you like, to our own countries. The language, when we speak, it's not exactly the same as what they would. The culture has diluted down. We say we're British, so where would someone like myself go, if we were to be deported out of the country?
Yeah, I can't see that those have been there a long time, as I say. I can't see that they would look at deporting people. I think they'd have to have a reason for doing it. You'd have to be an axe-murderer, Cedar, or something like that to be deported.
We'll have to see. I mean, their NHS system would completely dissolve if they did, and so would quite a lot of the...
But then if you ask the question of why was a man like Donald Trump elected, why wasn't Hillary Clinton, perhaps it's a call for change. People are fed up with the institutionalised politicians. Much of the same old. People want something different.
I think
a bit like
so.
the Brexit here.
Yes, I think that is definitely, there's voices to be heard there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Because Brexit was another thing that shocked everyone. And then afterwards, the implications, people didn't realise that, they had voted against it. And then suddenly afterwards, they didn't realise what, the implications of it all. There was all these uncertainties afterwards. So I think that there's voices to be heard beforehand, I feel. Things need to be put right beforehand before it gets to a dramatic thing like a president being elected and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, perhaps Mr. Trump, he will meet with Islamic leaders in the first few months in office and, discuss sensibly these things rather than build walls. But we're hearing some good things from his office at the moment, that he's looking at a different kind of relationship with Russia, the previous relationship between Russia and America has been a rather cool one, I think, and perhaps he's looking at somehow changing that.
If you can't beat them, you join them, don't you? So I think that's what's happening there. Do you know what? It's all about money and power and land, isn't it? At the end of the day, all these things. He might be a lovely person inside. We don't know. I mean, his wife is Eastern European, and he's half Scottish and half German himself, and we know that America was all built on immigration, so exactly. I'm sure he's thought of all of that.
So
really.
They're all immigrants, really, of some description, aren't they?
Yes.
It's Drive Time with Roz. It's a Friday. We're into the evening, heading towards Christmas. My guest today, Cedra Naeem, on the show, talking about President-elect Trump. We're touching on all sorts of subjects that involve the Islamic world. We've got lots of stories in the news that are negative. There are stories about terror. There are stories about building walls between America and Mexico. We've talked about the German lorry crashing into a Christmas market in Berlin. And I suppose next we've got to talk about some interfaith events, some ideas about getting the message across that put a good, hopeful message about Islam right here in our area, our part of Essex. We'll talk about that next here on Gateway 97.8. Gateway 97.8, Basildon and East Surrock's Bride of Sound from the heart of Eastgate. Hour 3 of Drive Time with Roz. The last Drive Time show before Christmas. I've got a special guest with me in the studio, a monthly guest, Sidra Naeem. We've been talking about Islam and some of the various items in the news, some of them not very positive. Well, most of them actually not very positive. We're trying to brighten things up here in the studio, certainly, because we're on the eve of a big festival that means something to us in both the Christian calendar and also the Islamic one as well. And it's all about peace, isn't it, Sidra? Yes. It is all about peace. And, these horrible things that we've been hearing about, this Polish lorry hijacked in Berlin and crashed into a Christmas market. That story dominating the news at the moment, and obviously this story is still moving forward as we speak. We've got some other things to talk about here. There have been things happening in Essex. You've been present at some events. They're known as interfaith events, aren't they?
Yes.
Tell us more about what those are about.
Yes, I mean, there's been some small ones and there's been some very large ones. So one of the small ones, which was actually held in Romford Mosque, because they're a brilliant mosque actually when it comes to engaging other faiths and the wider community. They held a very big interfaith forum there. We all had a topic which was on the founder of our faith, and the local synagogue, basically the whole of the synagogue turned up. It was a huge turnout. We had food as well, all from our own pockets. We gave the money for that. And the Queen's representative turned up. That was just amazing.
Wow. Excellent.
So that was really, really good. Then there was a very big interfaith event in Colchester. That was a big Essex-wide event where each and every faith was there present from all over England. And I was really privileged actually, because I was actually representing Islam there. I was chosen. So I actually opened the event, with a verse from the Quran.
You enjoy the public speaking?
Yes, I do. I think that's basically what my job is anyway. When you think of as a teacher, you have to do assemblies, huge assemblies in schools.
It must be quite exciting.
It is exciting. I like the adrenaline drive actually from it all. But I think the best thing when you do a talk on Islam is the vibes you get from the audience, and then people tell you they've learnt so much. It's the reward you get afterwards.
So what sort of things do you talk about at these events then? What do you have a list of like the regular known things or the misinterpretations and putting them right? Some of the stuff we're talking about on this show. Yes,
just this kind of stuff. So different faiths, will, for example, might talk about their scriptures one by one so we can understand other faiths. And then another event might be about the founder of their faith. At this event in Colchester, it was really interesting. I talked about Islam and mental health. So that was a very different topic there. How do we regard mental health and Islam? What are the ways that we can make mental health better? For example, praying 5 times a day helps you relieve all your anxieties and worries, and you're releasing all your problems to God, and that means you're happier and peaceful, more peaceful inside, that kind of stuff. So lots and lots of different topics. Where I am now in the university, I'm also going to be used to participate in interfaith events, and they'll be really big.
I take it there's question and answer sessions with these, and I'm just wondering what are the kind of questions you get asked?
The kind that you ask me here. Exactly the same. Are Muslims terrorists? Do we mix with non-Muslims? Halal meat? Why do we wear
the hijab
and about the burqa.
Yes.
I was about to say burqa there, but
burqa
I might
is
just
the
say
correct
it the right way.
pronunciation.
Yes, burqa.
Right, so I'll get that right from now on. And the burkini.
Yeah, the burkini, which I did talk about in this programme before in the past. In fact, I think we've covered all topics here, haven't we, really? So those kinds of things. I do regular show at BBC Essex as well. I'm actually on air on New Year's Day.
Oh, right. A bit of self-promotion now for another radio station.
Yeah, I like Gateway, though. I think you give me more time. The ones at BBC are very short.
Who are you appearing with on BBC Essex?
It's actually with the Dean of Chelmsford Cathedral.
Right.
He's doing the show. It's a church programme, but they always allow me a slot, and the topic is Donald Trump. And the new year, how we feel about the new year. How do we feel as Muslims?
Oh, let's give us a sneak preview. What are you going to say about Donald Trump?
Well, a bit like what I said here, really. You know, we're worried, obviously. We have got anxieties about the future, especially in January. I think that's when he will become president.
Yes, yeah.
But I'm well out there with the public. I mean, you will not believe this, but Chelmsford Cathedral tomorrow have invited me for the Christmas service. And I am going with my husband, so this is the way to do it, really.
This is a Christian festival.
Christian Christmas service.
So Muslims
carol singing and everything.
Yes.
But they've invited me as a special guest because they value me so much. You know, they've been using me in the past. I just did a talk on Britishness there on the Citizenship Day they did. They did a very big Citizenship Day, and they wanted to promote Britishness, which is now actually in all the policies of the politicians and in the national curriculum in schools. And they asked me to come because they class me as quite British. They asked me
British?
Yeah, they asked me to come and do a talk on Britishness in Islam.
Supporting West Ham as well.
Yes, and I did talk about that then, and everyone was actually quite surprised, you know, when I said I was born here, got the Cockney accent and everything, and, you know, West Ham United, grew up in London all my life. Talked about also Islam, how it got here way back from the 8th century. Muslims have been here as traders, and then slowly, you know, during Queen Victoria's reign, she, you know, for example, invaded 3/4 of the world was under British rule, wasn't it, in the British Empire? So more and more Muslims came then as well. But I talked about all the history of Islam and everything that we've brought here. And everybody was really surprised because I didn't know any of that.
Incredible.
A lot of the inventions and that kind of stuff.
Okay, we'll talk some more about interfaith in just a few moments' time. We've got to take a break for traffic and travel. My guest, Sidra Naeem, on Drive Time with Roz for a Friday evening. It's Gateway 97.8, our local radio from the heart of Eastgate. Gateway 97.8 from the heart of Eastgate, our local radio. It's Roz with Drive Time today, and it's the last show before Christmas. My special guest this evening, Sidra Naeem, and we're talking about Islam and some of the interfaith events that are taking place. You've been meeting some important people on your travels, haven't you, Sidra?
Yes, I've met 2 bishops. Bishop Stevens, he's supposed to be, you know, quite higher up in the hierarchy, and I've also met actually Bishop John Raw. He actually came to Chelmsford Mosque recently. He wanted to meet me because he'd heard about me, and he wanted to know a little bit about Islam. So I did a big talk at the mosque, and he came with other bishops, and then I showed them around and gave them some donuts to eat. He was really lovely, actually. He then sung my praises at the massive interfaith forum event that happened in Colchester. When he gave his speech, he spoke about me, and I just found that really touching.
Yes,
and because people don't praise Muslims much, that felt a lot to me. And he didn't ask my permission or anything beforehand. He just came out with it. He said, I saw a lovely girl the other day. Her name is, you know, Sidra, and I met her at the mosque, and she told me all about Islam, and then it's enlightened me, and I look at Muslims in a different way now. And afterwards, I actually nearly did cry when he said that. And afterwards, I went up to him and I said, oh, you really didn't have to say that, but that was really nice of you.
I think this is possibly a sign that we need some more of these events. And perhaps, I mean, they're taking place at Romford, they're taking place in Colchester. Maybe we need to get something going down here in Basildon.
Yes.
I mean, if I wind the clock back just a few years, there was an Islamic centre that I recall at the Triangle in Leindon, and it got burnt
got
down,
burnt
didn't
down,
it?
yes, it
now,
did.
is that a sign that there's some hate here?
Yes, of course there is. Yes, that's definitely was a hate crime attack, and the whole place burnt down to ashes, and they couldn't even rebuild it again. And now
there's nothing here now, is there?
there's nothing.
No.
It's just hiring out halls as and when, just Fridays, hiring out a hall and getting together on Fridays, which is the main prayer day for Muslims, the lunchtime prayer.
We have International Day once a year that usually takes place at the Friar Hall in Friends, and that's an event, a bit like an interfaith event, where you have cooking and all the different foods from all the different faiths on offer.
Yes.
And there are lots of different events, dancing and various things that people in the local area can dip into it and see what it's about and meet people like yourself.
Yes.
But it doesn't happen frequently enough.
Yes,
I think
you
this
know
is
why the council cut back on funds there,
Yeah.
because that was happening actually in Basildon Theatre, I remember. It was a big event with food and everything, and I think there's been cutbacks.
So another aspect of this is lack of money.
Lack of money. And whatever we do, definitely in Romford Mosque, it's with our own money.
Yes.
You know, everyone chips in. Someone will bring the paper plates, another brother brings in the pizzas, and you know, and we open up our doors free and that kind of stuff. It's whatever we do ourselves, but you don't get funding. I think some of the churches get funding, because I went to St Anthony's Church in East London. Actually, they invited me. Don't ask me how they got hold of my name, but I'm getting quite well known now. And they invited me to do a talk on Islamophobia and tolerance in Islam. And this was actually the next day after Donald Trump became president, so it was really well sort of organised, if you know what I mean, time-wise.
And what do you tell people when you're asked to talk about Islamophobia and tolerance?
Well, I talk all about the fact that ISIS are not Muslims. We don't class them as Muslims. They're not practicing Muslims, because a practicing Muslim would not kill. Not only, and we're not allowed to do suicide bombing either. You know, first of all, killing one person is like killing the whole of mankind, and then killing yourself, you are tampering with destiny. It's up to God to take. He gives us our life. It's up to Him to take away our life. And not only are you killing yourself, you're killing others with yourself as well. I mean, which religion would preach that? Because religions are all about preaching good and promoting peace.
And which religion would use children and women to do this as well?
Yes, and then the fact that if we are ever involved in a war because of self-defense purposes only, there are so many rules of conduct in there. We're not allowed to kill even livestock or destroy any wells, or children or the elderly, the sick, the disabled are not allowed to be harmed. None of the civilians, they have to be left alone. It's basically soldier to soldier only. And then even if there are any prisoners of war afterwards, we have to try and return them back to their homeland. We're not allowed to mutilate their bodies.
Well, ISIS have been guilty of some horrific
They've been doing
crimes
all of
there.
that. So doesn't that
Yes.
make you think that they're not Muslim? Also, did you know ISIS have killed more Muslims than they've killed non-Muslims?
Now that's
Millions.
some fact I didn't know.
Yes, in Syria and in Iraq, in
Yes.
Afghanistan, some in Turkey. They've been doing lots of attacks on Muslims. So what kind of Muslims are these who are killing their own kind? This is what makes us mainstream Muslims say they are not Muslim. And a religion, if you think about Islam, we pray 5 times a day. We don't even drink alcohol just in case a little bit of sin might happen.
Where do you get time to do this with your new job, praying 5 times a day?
Well, there are the chaplaincies right opposite my office, and I can just hop along and pray, really.
Yeah.
And the morning one I do at home anyway. It's mainly just the lunchtime one and possibly the afternoon one.
And does that
one.
take long? Does it?
No,
Is it very...
just a couple of minutes, really.
Yes.
It doesn't take long at all. And in fact, while I'm in there, I see lots of Muslims in distress, and they talk to me about cultural problems and everything, which is what my role is at the university now, like a Christian chaplain would do.
And Muslims in distress, what things generally would they be distressed about?
Well, this kind of stuff for starters.
Yeah.
You know, straight after the attack in Berlin,
Yes.
they're scared. You know, the women, especially the ones who are wearing headscarves, they are worried to go out in headscarves because
the
with
headscarf identifies them as Muslim.
you as Muslims, whereas men, a beard, it doesn't matter. There's lots of people who have beards, Muslim or non-Muslim.
Yes, and
you
Hindus and other faiths as well.
You can't tell they're Muslim, whereas with girls, you can tell straight away they're Muslim, and they're scared to go out. And then they ask me questions like, shall we take it off?
Yeah.
It's very sad. We feel quite oppressed sometimes, you know. Things like, you know, a baby's about to be born and, you know, shall we give it a name which is neutral, like Adam?
Yes, we've discussed this before.
Yeah, where people will not know that they are Muslim when they grow up. Or mothers whose children are being bullied at school. You know, we can't play with you because you're Muslim.
Yes,
we're allergic to
all
you.
these events in the news make it worse.
Yeah,
yes.
and children are innocent, but it's the parents actually, just like racism, it's the parents who will obviously
it rubs off onto the children,
and they can't help it. I mean, they might even have the news on while the poor children are there.
Yes, and that would be embarrassing, wouldn't it?
And children are innocent. They don't know that all Muslims are not like that. They just think whichever Muslim they see will be like that, you see. So there's a lot of bullying happening in schools, race hate crime happening. There's definitely more mosque attacks after something like this happens because people are retaliating against what's happened.
Yes.
So there's all those kinds of problems. You get mixed race relationships within the university where, you know.
Well, that's something I wanted to touch on. That is actually you've hit an interesting subject which we haven't approached before. Mixed race relationships. We'll just discuss that in just a few minutes, right here on Basildon and East Thurrock's Pride of Sound. It is Gateway 97.8 Drive Time with Roz. Gateway 97.8, Basildon and East Thurrock's brightest sound from the heart of Eastgate. Drive Time with Roz, the last drive time before Christmas. And we're counting down the hours really now. Well, certainly I am heading towards my Christmas turkey and my mince pies, my Christmas pudding, and my guest Cedra Naeem. You're of a different faith. It's the Islamic faith. It's the Muslim faith. Turkey for you, halal turkey, mince pies, Christmas pudding, custard or brandy sauce?
I don't know about Christmas pudding because there'd be alcohol in there, so we'd have to find a non-alcoholic Christmas pudding because we don't drink alcohol, just in case we don't sin. That's what a brilliant, peaceful religion is.
Well, we've been talking about, you know, Christmas and the positive side. We're hearing a lot of negative news stories about Islam once again in the news. We've been touching upon various topics. One topic we've not discussed before, Cedra, is we've talked about interfaith events. We haven't talked about interfaith relationships. Am I describing this in a reasonable term here?
Yes. I mean, first of all, colour-wise, we're allowed to marry any colour.
Yeah.
Okay, there's no racism in Islam.
What goes on in the world? Black people marry white people,
yes.
vice versa, Asians and various...
So Muslims' perspective is that all mankind is from Adam, so we're all descendants from the same ancestor, making us brothers and sisters of one another, if you like, yes? And if you think of all the prophets that we follow, right from Adam all the way down, you know, they all came from different lands. Moses was from Egypt, Jesus spoke Aramaic. He wasn't born in Basildon, was he? And Prophet Muhammad was born in Arabia. So all the people who we are following their religions of are all from different lands. And even some of the saints, for example, if you look at St. Valentine or you look at St. George, I think was from Palestine, they're all from different lands. St. Nicholas was from Turkey. So I thought I'll bring that one up because it's Christmas. So, you know, all the saints which we've elevated are all from different lands. So first of all, colour-wise, we can marry whichever colour we like. There's nothing stated there that we're not allowed to marry.
Do you know anybody who's done this?
Yes, quite a few.
Yeah.
Yes, quite a few, and it's worked out fine.
How has it affected or changed, if any way, their lives? Or has...
I think that culture weakens because when you marry somebody from another colour, it's because they're in love with them, and then it doesn't bring all the culture baggage with it.
Right.
So culture, I would say, definitely is not in the question when you marry someone of another colour. That's all deleted out of the equation. And I think the only problems you can have then is the children, you see. Which way are you going to bring them up? Are you going to bring them up like a black African family would?
Yes, yeah.
Or are
yeah.
you going to bring them up like a white English British family would? That's the problem. But a lot of the couples that I know who have married and
Sure, it's
chosen
fairly
to marry,
neutral, really. It's
they
somewhere
want to
in
be
the middle,
neutral.
aren't they?
Yeah, they want
Yes.
to be neutral. Definitely.
But then perhaps when, if mum is black and dad is white and mum does the cooking, you could get some really interesting recipes being cooked in that kitchen.
Yeah.
And, that anybody in that household who's white's going to be treated to some rather interesting dishes.
Yeah, and we're actually in Islam sort of supposed to get to know each other. For example, there's a verse here from the Quran which is really good. It says, "O mankind, we created you from a single soul, male and female, and made you into nations and tribes so that you may come to know one another."
Yes.
So we're actually, what God is trying to say is encouraging us that He's made us into different colours so we can come to know one another.
And we get to know one another through this.
Yes.
It's very good. I would like to see this more. We started off this show today by talking about areas where people aren't mixing, people aren't relating to one another, and in certain areas of the UK there are even Muslim communities, as other Asian communities as well, not speaking English. And I think this is very important. This has been discussed a lot in the news recently. British values. You were talking about it yourself a little bit earlier on.
I think that the problem there is when there's too many of one kind in one area.
Place, yes.
And I think the ideal world is to be mixed. So you will get pockets. For example, Stanford Hill is a brilliant example to give, where there's a huge amount of Jewish community all living together, and they all, speak Yiddish with each other, and they don't mix. They've built a wall around them. So Jews themselves have told me this.
When I was young, we had a Catholic family living in our street, and they didn't mix with the rest of us. They kind of were very aloof. Their children went to different schools that the rest of us went to. If we saw them in the street and tried to be friendly, they would be sort of courteous but very remote and detached, and it's like they didn't want to mix, and I found that very sad.
I've seen the change myself. Grew up in London, and when I grew up there, it was very mixed, and we knew all our neighbours. We used to mix with all our neighbours. My mum used to send food over to our neighbours, English neighbours. They used to come over. I remember when my brother was born, and both our next door neighbours came round and gave gifts. So we used to mix in a way. We did, because there wasn't anyone else, if you know what I mean. But even so, we were the original ones who came over, and we were educated as well. I think that might be a difference. My mum and dad could speak English, so they were educated and they wanted to mix. My dad actually went to university here. He came over as a student and went to university, so he was in that sort of environment of mixing. But as the years went by, more and more Asians came in. And then, if there's too many of your own kind, why do you need to mix with others? You don't need to mix. Why would you need to go out of your own comfort zone? You may not have the confidence to speak English when you've got plenty of your own to speak your own language with. And it's the same, believe it or not, in white English British villages.
Yes.
Because I used to work before I got this job, which is now very multicultural.
Well, again, you've got your Middle Englanders, haven't you? And I'm sad to say, when I go to see my other half's family, some of them are a bit older. They say something to me like, "Oh, I went to Croydon the other week. Oh, it's terrible. Why is it terrible?"
So villages, believe it or not, is the same culture, because I remember the whole playground was white British and a new Indian girl joined.
Yeah, that must have been quite daunting for her.
Yes, the children were fine. She had lots of friends. The grandmother was very traditional, so she would stand in the playground with the sari on, and everybody else was white British. And I used to feel really sorry for her. Nobody used to talk to her. She'd be standing in the corner all on her own, even though
yes.
she could speak English. That's the irony of it all. But everyone else had enough of their own.
I
Why
think
would
it's
they need to
fear,
talk to her?
Cedra, isn't it? Fear,
Yeah, fear of the unknown
all
and
the time.
that kind of stuff.
And I mean, it's the same. This Catholic family, you know, I think it was mum and dad, and 2 daughters and a son, possibly, but not. They just didn't mix with the rest of us, and of course. But by standing aloof and the way they were, you know, that they then invited abuse, because then, you know, youngsters in the street would shout at them because I think they'd tried to be friendly with them. They didn't seem to want to be friendly back. And then that invited abuse. And there were several incidents where I witnessed abuse. And I can also, another time at school, I had a couple of friends. There was a boy and a girl, and they were Asian half caste.
Right.
Now I was invited back to their house. I met mum and dad. Dad was Asian, mum was white, but they were the loveliest people, Cedra, you could possibly meet. Dad was so nice. He was such a gentleman. You'd say a gentleman, dressed smartly in a suit.
Yes.
Whenever I met him, mum was just lovely as well.
Yeah.
And then the boy and the girl, they were my friends. And I can remember once in the street where they got abused by someone else who actually was a friend of mine, and I had to try and say, stop it, because it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair. Nasty words. We'll say it on the radio. The P word was used. And I thought, well, this lad and this girl, they were born in this country. Yes. They're not from this country that you're referring to. They're not. You know, it's.
But it's sad then for that child who might regard himself as British and English,
well,
because
he
his
did.
mum was
The
English.
boy was very, very Cockney sounding, and the girl.
And that's, I
you
think,
know, they
where
were both lovely
where the
children.
problems then come, because the child finds his identity. He thinks he has, and then something happens from outside, and suddenly realizes, oh, I'm not that.
But then you got someone else who you don't know telling you don't belong, and that must be hard. And you think, well, who are you to tell me I don't belong?
It's the stereotypes as well, isn't it? I mean, a lot of people get surprised in these areas when they hear me speak. You know, there was one old lady I'll never forget. She said to me, I don't understand, she said, you sound English, but you don't look English. She couldn't work it out, poor thing. And then I had to explain to her that you know, you can sound English if you're born here, but you may not look English, because immigration has happened throughout centuries, hasn't it?
That's right.
You know, but I think the newer generation, they're getting better, definitely, because they're used to it now. More and more, you know, you go to university and it is just full of international students out there. In fact, universities are earning a lot of money through international students. It's opened up my eyes. And if Brexit does go ahead,
Brexit is going ahead. We're told Brexit means Brexit. Theresa May, she's got to execute Article 50. It's got to happen. It might take some time for it to take effect.
But the country will lose money. They will lose money in terms of students.
Or maybe they'll do a deal with Donald Trump. You're listening to Gateway 97.8. My guest Cedra Naeem today on the programme. We're just ahead of Christmas. We've got a little bit more to come. We've got to take a break right now. This is Basildon and East Thurrock's Brighter Sound from the heart of Eastgate. It's our local radio. Gateway 97.8, Basildon and East Thurrock's Brighter Sound from the heart of Eastgate. Ros, on it's the eve before Christmas Eve, Christmas drive time. My guest Cedra Naeem, we've been having a great time really here in the studio. No mince pies though as yet. I think everybody's gone home. That's probably why we have to entertain ourselves. Now, you were talking off mic a little while back about the possibility of meeting the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan.
Yes, I have been offered to, I can't remember the name of the MP that I met. It wasn't Lord Bourne who I met recently, actually, at the cathedral. It was another MP who, obviously, the only other Muslim he's met was me. So it was really interesting, because he could only compare me with Sadiq Khan. And he said, oh, you must come one day to the Houses of Parliament and you can meet Sadiq Khan. So I got his card, and I've just been so busy with the new job and everything. Hopefully after after Christmas, I'll try and contact him, and I would like to go, and I would like to meet him.
Well,
and I'll send you a photo.
Well, yes, you'll have to. The two of you, yes. I
Yes.
mean, it would be a real privilege to meet him. I think from my perspective, and I think when he was first made mayor, we spoke about Sadiq on the show, and what a step forward it is
We
for
did,
Britain,
yes.
a Muslim mayor.
Yes, that was really good, wasn't it? Because it was right at the time when there was the negative stuff going on with Donald Trump
and then this
everything.
happened.
And then this happened. So it really does surprise you, the world, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then I think at the same time, Nadia Hussein, I think her name is, won the Great British Bake Off as well.
Yes,
And she was Muslim, wasn't
absolutely.
she? So there was two good role models out there at last.
And we need those, and
Yeah.
we've just recently had The Apprentice. So a white person won The Apprentice. I think all the dark-skinned people did actually lose, but
Yes.
we'll probably see these things change. You get somebody outstanding come through,
Yes.
and it shouldn't matter what colour you are. It shouldn't matter what race you aspire to. It should just be because you're a nice person.
Yes, it's what's inside that counts, isn't it? And
Yeah.
in Islam as well. I was talking to you about all the nations and tribes, so that you may come to know one another. Then God also carries on and says, "Truly, the most noble of you in the sight of God is the most righteous of you." So it's what's inside that counts, not your outside colour. So that implies again that there's no racism in Islam.
Absolutely, and just to reiterate what we were talking about earlier, the bad things, the atrocities that we're seeing in the world, these are by this minority of probably 0.00 of a nanosecond of a cross-section of society here, which we have to try to negate this. With what we're doing, and try to enlighten our listener today, and with all the interfaith events that you're going to and you're speaking at.
Yes, so many now, it's getting bigger and bigger, really.
So we need to look at something happening perhaps in this area at some time. There are no mosques in Basildon.
No, there used to be an interfaith forum running through Basildon Council. But I know that the lady who was running that, is now off sick for a while. So something might happen again when she comes back. But I'll keep you posted, and you'll have to try and come as well.
Well, I'm going to have to, even if it's just to sample some of the delightful food that seems to be on offer at some of these events.
Yes. The food at the Colchester event was just spectacular. It was Lebanese, and it was just amazing. Lebanese and Moroccan food. So there's chicken tagine, which is very unusual, really.
Oh, what is that?
That is actually chicken which is baked in a small clay pot.
Oh,
in
yes,
the fire.
yes.
They have it in Morocco. And there was that, and there was this beans, curry and rice, and lots of other brilliant things. It was really delicious and very different, actually, Middle Eastern food.
Is there anything that we've missed this afternoon as we go into the evening now that you want to talk about on air?
Yes, I mean, when we talked about mixed race marriages,
yes, yeah.
I also thought I'd better touch on
because
mixed religion marriages.
we touched on colour, really.
Yes.
We hadn't really spoken about the religion side of it.
So in Islam, first of all, when a baby is born, it takes on the religion of the father. Okay?
Right.
That's the way it is in Islam.
Yes.
So for that reason, the father, it's recommended that he's Muslim, okay? But with the wife, it can be anyone from the people of the book. And what we mean by the people of the book is any of the three monotheistic religions. So Christianity, Judaism, or Islam. So for the mother, she's allowed to be a woman of the book, so it's any of those monotheistic religions. The father, it's recommended to be Muslim, because the children then in Islam carry on the religion of the father. That's the way it is. But again, there is no compulsion in religion, so you're not allowed to force anybody. So say you want to marry somebody who is not a woman of the book, you're not allowed to force her to become Muslim unless she wants to herself. And usually the women who do become Muslim, they have thought about it very carefully, and they've delved into all the facts themselves and looked into things.
Only white women become Muslim?
Yes, I know
Yeah.
quite a few actually. One of them, after 9/11, delved into Islam to see what the big fuss was all about. She didn't even know what the word Islam was until 9/11 happened. And she delved into Islam because of all the negativity she had. She wanted to look it up. And when she looked it all up, looked into the scriptures and things, she found out what brilliant religion it is. And then, yes, she became Muslim. And she's actually a better practicing Muslim than quite a lot of the other ones who are born into the religion.
Does she now wear the hijab?
She does,
yes,
and she looks very elegant and very pretty, actually. Yes, she does. She dresses more Islamic, I would say, than I do. I mean, I'm wearing English clothes here, as you can see.
You're very sparkly today. I mean, for the benefit of our listener who can't see us today, you're looking very sparkly and very...
I like
very
sparkles anyway, but you could take it. This is a Christmas jumper, but I bought this recently and it's got a lot of glitz on it.
Yes,
so it's
very
like
glittery.
Snow,
yes, so we're sort of looking at grey and black here. The hijab is matching, so it's quite nice.
I
Complements
always
the rest of it.
Always match the scarves. We have to be colour coordinated. You can't wear a red jumper and then wear a pink scarf, so it's got to be matching. We actually do have a lot of clothes. I think I've mentioned that before. We have a lot of clothes. We have English clothes, which we wear to work, and like what I'm wearing here. We have our own cultural clothes, depending on which country we're from. So I have got my own cultural clothes, which I would wear at a wedding, for example. And then we've got our own Islamic set of clothes that we would wear at the mosque.
I don't know why people get so upset about the hijab. If I project back to the 60s, the late 60s, when I was growing up, my mother, my nan or grandmother, whatever you want to call it, they all wore scarves on their heads, I mean, to protect themselves against the weather. I mean, your protection there, the hijab, I mean, we're told it's going to be very, very windy because of this storm Barbara that's meant to arrive on Christmas Day, so I can see the hijab will be a great protection against that horrible wind.
It's a requirement in all the Abrahamic religions, actually. I mean, in the Bible it says cover your hair is your beauty, and cover it, and that's why nuns cover their hair, because they don't get married. So right up to Victorian times people did cover their hair. It's after really the sexual revolution of the 60s that women started uncovering their hair, and it was in a way to promote the pill and that kind of stuff.
That's right. It tended to disappear, didn't it, in the 70s? Yes.
But if you talk to old grandmothers, they'll all tell you they went to church with a hat on. They never went out without covering their hair.
Well, it was a form of respect, wasn't it, really, as well?
Yeah. I mean, Little House on the Prairie, even now when I watch it, when the door knocks, the lady grabs her shawl.
Oh, Little House on the Prairie. You're talking about one of my favourite television series.
You watch that programme now and say there's a knock on the door. She quickly grabs her shawl and covers up her chest, and then she grabs a scarf for a hat and pops it on her head, and then she opens the door. I find that absolutely fascinating. She could almost be Muslim there.
Yes, I love the way when again in that programme as well, you see the men, they'll always take their hat off to a lady. You know, they'll stand there and they'll if they're wearing a hat, they'll take it off, and that respect is there. A lot of that has gone these days, hasn't it? Sadly.
Yes. Yes, I mean, the good old days were the best, weren't they?
Oh, we could sit here and talk forever about this, but we must wrap this now. Cedra and I, my guests on Drive Time today, want to wish you, certainly from Christian faith, the other side of the desk here, very Merry Christmas. And to you, I hope you have a lovely one with your husband, and you've got your son as well, haven't you?
Son and daughter.
And daughter. Are you seeing any other family this Christmas as well?
We're still trying to work out days and things, but yes, at one stage I'm seeing my mum and dad, at one stage I'm seeing my sister. In-laws we already did 2 weeks ago. I think it might have even been last week.
You did
We did all the in-laws together. Everybody got together.
Right.
Very big family, all got together, all had a big meal together. It was really nice, actually. Yes.
Excellent. So, and we'll catch up with you on events in the new year.
Yes, definitely.
So we'll be talking about 2017, and Mr. Trump will almost certainly be installed in office then.
Yes.
We're going to see where that takes us, and let's hope for a peaceful and very Merry Christmas. Cedra, thanks for being my guest today.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me, and absolutely love being here. It's not been a year yet since I've started coming here, but it feels like I've been a part of the team, actually.
Well, you are. And if you've got a message for Basildon tonight, what would that message be?
Let's all try and live peacefully together, and live like God created in the first place. I've got a little prayer here. Oh Lord, help us all to live peacefully together in spite of our differences in colour, race and religion, as we are all your creation. Let us unite all the people without war or injustice to create one happy world like you created in the beginning. Amen.
I can't say fairer than that. Cedar Name, thank you. This is Gateway 97.8, Basildon and East Thurrock's brightest sound that comes to you right here from the heart of Eastgate.